Think about your earliest memory. Maybe it's your first day at school. Maybe it's a birthday party. Maybe it's something embarrassing. But no matter who you are, you probably can't remember being a baby. The first 3 years of your life are almost completely missing. So what happened to them? If that question just made you uncomfortable, good. Stick around, because the answer is genuinely one of the strangest things I've come across. And if you're new here, subscribe. We cover science like this every week. Scientists call it infantile amnesia, and it's the reason that almost no human being on Earth can remember being a baby. Most people can't pull up a single clear memory from before age 3. Anything before age 2? A universal blank. Think about how bizarre that actually is. Babies are learning constantly. A newborn goes from not being able to hold their own head up to crawling, to walking, to talking, to recognizing faces, all within the first 2 years of life. That is some of the most intense, rapid learning a human brain ever does. And yet, none of it is remembered. You learn to walk. You don't remember learning to walk. You heard your mother's voice every single day. You don't remember that either. How does the most active period of learning in your entire life just vanish? That is exactly the question researchers have been obsessing over, and for a long time, nobody had a satisfying answer. Now, before we get to the real answer, I want to walk you through what scientists used to believe, because it tells an interesting story about how science works. The first big theory came from Sigmund Freud. His explanation was psychological. Early memories aren't lost, they're repressed, buried by the unconscious, because the experiences of infancy are too overwhelming, too primal, too emotionally raw for the conscious mind to handle. Interesting theory. Turns out, almost certainly wrong. The second popular idea was simpler. Babies don't have language yet, so memories can't form properly. The thinking was, since we store memories using words and concepts, and babies don't have words, the memories simply can't stick. There's a little truth buried in this one. Language does help us organize memory, but deaf children who never develop spoken language still experience infantile amnesia, so language isn't the whole story. Then came a third theory. Maybe babies' brains are just too overwhelmed by new information for anything to get encoded deeply enough to last. Again, partially interesting, mostly incomplete. None of these theories fully explained what was happening. And then neuroscience showed up and blew the whole conversation open. Here's where things get genuinely fascinating. It turns out the infant brain is, structurally, not equipped to store long-term memories the way an adult brain is. There's a region of the brain called the hippocampus. Think of it as your brain's filing system. It's responsible for taking short-term experiences and converting them into long-term memories. It's the reason you remember what you had for dinner last Tuesday, or the name of a person you met last month. In babies, the hippocampus is not fully developed. It's there, it's working, but it hasn't matured to the point where it can reliably encode and store long-term memories. It's like trying to save files on a hard drive that's still being assembled. And it's not just the hippocampus. The prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain that gives memories context, meaning, narrative. That part doesn't fully come online until your mid-20s. So here's what's happening in a baby's brain. Experiences are coming in constantly. The brain is responding. But the architecture needed to keep those experiences as lasting memories simply isn't built yet. The filing cabinet exists, but the drawers aren't installed. Now here's the part of this story that genuinely surprised me, and I think it's going to surprise you too. It's not just that the baby brain is underdeveloped. There's something else happening, something almost counterintuitive. The infant brain is growing at a ferocious rate. Specifically, it's generating new neurons, new brain cells, at a pace that is absolutely extraordinary. This process is called neurogenesis, and it happens faster in the first years of life than at almost any other time. Now you'd think, more neurons means better memory, right? More brain cells, more storage capacity? Here's the twist. When new neurons are created and wired into an existing network, they disrupt the connections that were already there. They're not just added to the system, they integrate into it, reshaping existing pathways in the process. So the very same neurogenesis that makes babies into learning machines, the same explosive brain growth that is literally building their intelligence, is also, as a side effect, wiping out the memory pathways that were forming before it. It's like renovating a house while you're living in it. New walls are going up, the layout is changing, and in the process, some of the old furniture just gets lost in the chaos. Scientists now believe this is one of the primary reasons for infantile amnesia. The brain isn't just failing to record memories, it's actively growing through them, overwriting them as it goes. The very thing making babies smarter is the same thing making their memories disappear. But here's where the story takes a turn that I think is actually kind of beautiful. Just because you can't consciously access those early memories doesn't mean they're gone. Not entirely. Think about what happens in the first years of life. You're not just lying there passively. You're learning whether the world is safe or dangerous. You're learning whether the people around you are reliable or not. You're developing your first sense of attachment, what it feels like to be held, comforted, ignored, loved, and all of that is being encoded, not as stories, not as scenes you can replay, but as deep, emotional patterns in the brain. Your nervous system remembers. Researchers call this implicit memory, memory that exists not as a conscious recollection, but as a felt sense, a reflex, a tendency. This is why some people feel inexplicably anxious in certain situations and can't trace it back to any specific event. This is why some people find intimacy easy and others find it terrifying, and they don't fully understand why. This is why certain smells, or tones of voice, or the way someone laughs can trigger something deep in you that feels like it comes from nowhere. It comes from then. You may not remember your mother's voice from when you were 3 months old, but your brain never forgot it. The emotional signature of that voice, whether it was warm or cold, present or absent, soothing or tense, that got encoded at a level far below conscious memory. And in some real, measurable sense, it's still shaping you today. So let's pull back for a second and look at the full picture. You were born. Your brain exploded into action, growing, firing, connecting, learning at a rate that will never be matched again in your life. And then, as it built itself into the brain you have today, it lost the receipts. The records got overwritten. The memories dissolved into the structure. What's left isn't a blank, it's a foundation. Your earliest experiences, the ones you cannot remember, the ones that happened before you had words for any of it, are quietly woven into the way you think, feel, attach, react, and move through the world. The strangest part of all this isn't that your first memories disappeared. It's that they may still be influencing every decision you make today, hidden beneath the surface, from a life you can no longer remember. You are, in part, someone you'll never be able to meet. If this made you think, share it with someone, because this is the kind of thing that's more interesting to talk about than to keep to yourself. And if you haven't subscribed yet, now's a good time. There's a lot more where this came from.